Okay, so I'm here with Matt from Cheeks and Cherries, who's going to give us a bit of a dad's perspective. Hello, Matt.
Hello, hello.
And first thing I wanted to ask you was whether you've always been a real nappy enthusiast.
No, is the simple answer. We have 3 kids, and the first 2 definitely grew up in disposables. It wasn't. I sort of looked. They all felt a bit too intimidating, really, and we didn't really quite know where to go. And then a couple of years ago, we had Ivan, Alex, who was born at home. It's a completely different story, but Alex gave birth to Ivan. It was just the 2 of us at home. And so my sister-in-law almost jokingly sort of said, well, if you've had a baby at home, you should try real nappies. And so she sent us some real nappies to try. And Alex sort of got really enthusiastic about them, having been sort of very sceptical. We were sort of converted into their use with Ivan, our 3rd one, and he grew up with a selection of real nappies.
That's fantastic, because lots of people think that, you know, if they've had children before and they've not used real nappies, then it's something they shouldn't consider for another child. But that's not the case, is it?
No, not at all. And I think there's this sort of misconception that you should only do one or the other. I mean, just because you've done one thing before doesn't mean you can't try something different. And real nappies are so different now to they were even sort of 2 or 3 years ago, let alone 5, 6 years ago, that you should definitely keep looking at them, you know, for subsequent children. And of course, the sooner you get into it, the sooner you start saving money. Absolutely.
And so, was Alex keener than you, or were you about the same?
No. Alex was definitely keener than me. I had no idea. Like, I think most of the customers at Cheeks and Cherries are similar in that they keep their stash sort of hidden almost from their man. And I definitely only became aware of the real nappy drawer once it was a drawer, not just a few. I to begin with, was totally oblivious to these nappies sort of appearing in the drawer, and then suddenly I became aware of them. And one day Alex sat me down and explained how they sort of work to me, and ever since I've sort of gone, yeah, no, they're so, you know, she converted me there and then.
So there was no trouble converting you then?
I think there was. I think I was quite sceptical to begin with, because I just thought they were so complicated and difficult to understand. But she sort of picked one, started to explain it to me in a simple way, and then I sort of got into it. And then you start to realise how quite sort of straightforward they are, and you get the benefit. But I don't think it was, you know, it was definitely on one day I just sort of asked the question, what are all these things? Why do we need so many?
Were they all in different patterns and colours?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Alex had a huge range of different types and sizes and colours and patterns. You know, and at the time I had no idea what I was letting myself into. But yes, no, they were quite exciting once you sort of got into them.
Excellent. And so for you, what do you think are the most appealing aspects of real nappies?
I think that the most appealing aspects of real nappies for me personally are actually, you know, the counterpoint to disposables. So I really love the look of them. I think there's something quite, if your baby is out and about, you know, your toddler is out and about in the summer just running around, there's nothing uglier than a disposable sort of hanging loose, you know, between the legs. And then also it's just the smell. The smell's pretty of disposables. I just can't get. Having converted, I just now realise what that smell was. And then the one final thing for me is the lack of pseudocreme. So Ivan had no nappy rash and no problem like that, and we hardly ever use pseudocreme or nappy rash cream of any kind. And I think that makes you realise just how sort of compelling they are as a product, and how actually you think, no, there are some really good things here.
That's really interesting because most of the answers we usually get from dads is that it's the financial aspect that encourages them. So it's nice to hear some different answers.
Well, I think so, and I think that us chaps like to have a rational side. And when I talk to customers at Cheeks and Cherries, we do talk about the cost and the financial saving. But for me personally, I think that is quite something. But to begin with, I think the most appealing aspects were the sort of the look, so they look great, the lack of smell, and then actually the benefits to the baby's bum, so that you're not creating nappy rash.
Excellent. Okay. And so, do you think that generally real nappies do appeal more to the mum than the dad?
And that's a good question. I think that the answer to that is yes and no. I think real nappies, I think mums love nappies. At the core of it is that they just don't like the idea that something will still be rotting in landfill when their babies are still around, and so they want to leave the world. Want to make sure the world has a future that's really best for their baby, and I think dads have that as well. But I think that dads have a more rational side as well. So there are other things that appeal. So I think that once dads have had it explained, then they sort of get it. Now I think that without generalising completely in this field, I think because mums, dads, there are quite a lot of things that dads find intimidating about new children because they're not doing it all the time in general, and so nappies are yet another slightly odd thing that they have to get their heads around. And I think that, and of course blokes always like to think they know what's going on, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, we actually do get quite a few calls from people and emails saying that or from mums saying that although they're keen, their partner is really dragging their feet. So how would you advise those mums to persuade their reluctant partners?
Okay. Well, I have two things that, as of yet, I've not had a conversation with anyone where as a bloke, they haven't gone, okay, that makes sense to me. One is the cost, and because it's very easy in your weekly shop to lose the cost of a disposable, but actually when you explain that you're going to spend £1,500 per child on disposable nappies, and yet with real nappies, even at a push, you can pretty much have all the nappies you need for between £300 to £400, and that's not being tight on the budget. I think they suddenly their ears really prick up, and because I think chaps are aware of the financial cost of having children. They're not cheap, and so it's really important, and they can see how they could spend the money on other things. I think that's the first way to do it, and the second way is something that I don't think dads really necessarily get until they start to actually throw disposables away. But the fight with the wheelie bin is something quite spectacular when you've got two children in disposable nappies, and you can suddenly have your entire bin filled up in 2 to 3 days, and you're bouncing on top of it, all with all the disposable nappies and all of the pleasantries that they contain. And I think those two reasons, one works, but in fact, it always reminds me, we went to a baby show a year ago, and a guy, I talked to him about the cost, and he was so reluctant about real nappies. He just thought we were totally loony. And I explained the cost to him, and he was so converted. He did the sums, he did the sums himself, and he was so converted that he then spent most of the rest of the day on our stand talking to blokes about the cost. And we then, at subsequent baby shows, had people coming back to us who remembered this guy talking about the cost and how much money there was to be saved in these nappies, and they had come back specifically to buy them because they were so impressed with him.
Excellent. Did you give him a job?
Yeah, so I really think that actually, rather than, because mums often are just a little afraid that they keep buying nappies, and we get a lot of people on our site saying, oh no, I can't buy another one, my husband will be so cross. But actually, yeah, there is a money saving aspect to it, even every time you buy one. So I think that's something that dads could have it explained better to them, you know, and they could appreciate more.
And do you think there's a specific type of real nappy that would appeal to a dad more?
I think as a general, I come back to this point, and I know I'm generalising completely about who does the most, because it's not always one type or other. But I think that dads, if there is a broad range of different types, it can be a bit intimidating for them. And a lot of mums talk about, well, these are the ones that dad likes to use, you know, they're the ones that he understands. And I think we are simple folk, us chaps, and I think that actually there is definitely something in keeping it simple. So if there is one type, you know, with colour-coded poppers, or with a pocket, you know, with one insert or something, that they understand, then it's so much easier than suddenly opening the nappy stash and just sort of thinking, where do I go now? Which one am I trying to find? And so I don't think, you know, because there's such a broad range, there's so many great nappies out there, I just, you know, like all-in-ones or whatever, I just think that actually simplicity is the best thing for us boys, as in most things. And therefore you can sort of just, we understand then what is required, and we sort of can embrace it with a great gusto. And I know a lot of men that suddenly, once they've got into it, are massive converts to it and are really passionate about it.
So there's a lesson to be learnt there. If their mums can just convert their husbands, they can be the strongest advocates.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of, you know, we have customers who are blokes who are massive converts to it and are real advocates and think it's great. But then, you know, and they also, and the cost side but also the simplicity and the ease of it as well, they sort of get really behind once they understand it.
So what made you and Alex then decide to set up a real nappy business? When we started, we found, as I said, Alex's sister gave us some nappies to try, and we found that they were incredibly good products. But our marketing background sort of had us sort of say, well, the websites that were around at the time, and I don't think this is true now, but the websites around at the time, they were quite complicated and quite lecturing in their style, and they didn't make nappies fun and easy and simple, and so it made the whole thing sort of look quite complicated, and made everyone feel that there was some sort of trial in having to go to nappies, and that you either were in it completely or you weren't. And we tried very hard to set up a site which was fun and bright and lots of pictures and illustrations to get people to realise that this is something which is fun. Has a, you know, at the core of it, there is a really important point about reducing landfill and the environmental benefits that this brings, but actually you're also creating something that's fun, bright and almost fashionable out of something that otherwise is just a horrible smelly piece of oil and paper all thrown together. But we wanted to have that fun in the site, so we sort of set it up with that in mind. And you know, I think things have moved on a lot since then, but the product still keeps improving. So from a marketing point of view, we can keep telling people about the great stories. And I think that, and I think that's why we did it. So Cheeks and Cherries is an online shop. Do you hold a whole range of nappies?
Yeah, we do. We range all-in-ones, and we range pockets and snapping ones, and even by the very nature saying we range all these different types, it suddenly makes it very confusing almost. And what we try and do is just keep it as simple as possible, so that if there is a particular brand that you've been recommended, you can easily find that at Cheeks and Cherries. But if you actually were looking for you know, some advice, we have that as well, and we try and break it down and sort of ask you the pertinent questions about, you know, what sort of drying rate, how would you dry them, what sort of thing are you looking for, does your baby go to childcare, and that sort of thing, because that actually sort of helps you make some sort of decisions about which ones are best for you.
So it's actually quite tailored advice.
Yeah, we definitely do that, and we within the confines of a website, we try and tailor our advice, and we do sell a broad range from Tots, Bots and Bum Genius, but then through to some more specialised and fun brands like from Australia, like Cushy Tushies and Issy Bear, which are, you know, have a sort of good following, a good nappies, but add a little bit of fun and brightness to your nappy drawer.
I think that has been coming over more and more in recent years for people, that you don't have to be using it because of the environment or for money. You could just use them because they look fantastic.
Yeah, I think if you're in it, then you're going to save money. So, you know, that's a straightforward given, and you are going to benefit the environment and do good things in terms of reducing landfill. But actually, they don't in themselves therefore have to be worthy. They can be fun, bright, and you know, different colours and fabrics. So we have brilliantly bright and fluffy, furry ones, and we have sort of the more structured and sort of more serious ones, and the slim fitting ones as well. But I think, yeah, at the end of it, it's got to be a bit of fun, because having a baby, although it's hard work, is a lot of fun. And I think that's what we try and capture, is that being a parent is one of the, you know, is the best job in the world, and it's all fun, and you just sort of can enjoy this as much as you enjoy all sorts of other things.
Okay, and so what do you find is one of the most common concerns you get from your customers about using real nappies?
Okay, I think there are three things. It all sounds hard work. What if they leak, and do they last overnight? Those are sort of common ones. But then always the one that sits in people's minds that people don't like to talk about is the poo. And I think that people, you know, there's always that question about, surely this means that something happens about the poo. And I think those are the three sort of questions that we get most often from people who, particularly people who are thinking about using them but haven't actually had children yet. I think it's everyone worries about those sorts of things.
Okay, so if we take that, your last one, the one that you feel comes up most commonly, being the poo, how do you usually address that with your customers?
I start by trying to demystify it and actually saying it's not so complicated, because I mean there are three stages of baby. I'm no doctor, so please don't take this as medical advice, but there are three stages of poo. There is the sort of initial meconium, which is like tar, and that is complicated, but it only lasts for a couple of days. Then you get to the French's mustard type poo, and then you get onto more solid stuff when you wean. And you basically, although you have those, you actually can simplify it completely by having a liner which you just dispose of in the loo, or you can do it in other ways through the washing machine, and just talk about it in a way that demystifies it and gets people to realise it's actually no big problem. That is how we sort of deal with the last one. I think you just have to talk about it rather than sort of pretend it's not there, or not talk about it openly.
I think it is, again, through the calls that we get, there is this perception that they are harder to use, take up more time, and there is this kind of reluctance to get messy. I think parents think it's going to be a messier process than using a disposable.
Yeah, and I think I can, you know, I definitely got messier when we used disposables. So I mean, I got hit like a good one on a couple of occasions by Edith, who is our eldest daughter, when using disposables. I think that's just part of being dealing with it. But I think the more serious point you just mentioned about the hard work is actually, you're just, you know, being a parent is hard work. There's no doubt about it. But you're moving the hard work into a different place by buying disposables. Although you think it's convenient, you will at some point run out at 7 o'clock at night when you're just putting your children to bed, and you've got to get them all into the car and go off and get disposables, you know, and or you've got to remember to have them, they've got to be around, or you've got to carry them with you. And I think that actually you are moving the workflow into different parts of your regime, you know, because you're going to be doing washing, and that's part of what you do as a parent, and it's actually quite good fun to sort of assemble them all back together and fold them all up in your drawer. Or is that because I'm slightly odd?
With a real nappy enthusiastic.
Yeah, just I think, yes, definitely.
Okay, before we leave it, Matt, I just wanted to ask a final question to you, and that was what real nappy secret you'd like to share with other parents?
I think the best secret I have is sunlight, because sunlight is nature's way of getting rid of some of the things that we have to deal with when you're using real nappies. So the sunlight and the UV rays can get rid of the staining, and sunlight also can act to get rid of some of the bugs that occasionally linger, that sometimes make them smell a bit of ammonia. And I think that those two things, sunlight and just hanging them out to dry on a sunny day, is a really, really good thing to do, and incredibly simple. And I so often think that people don't talk about that enough. So that's what I think would be my secret. But I would just go back to actually saying to everyone, they are incredibly simple. Real nappies are not complicated, and I think everyone offers so much choice, which sometimes can seem intimidating, but actually the actual products themselves are really, really simple.
Excellent. Well, thank you ever so much for talking to us today, Matt.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Loved it.
And have a good Real Nappy Week.
Thank you. Same to you. I hope it all goes well.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Bye.